Part 2, Finishing the Reaver Dagger. In this video, I will complete the Reaver Dagger. First, I will work on creating the guard. I'm cutting the very rough shape of the guard out of a 1/2 inch by 1.5 inch thick piece of mild steel bar. The main purpose of cutting with the angle grinder here is to reduce the amount of waste steel that I need to grind away to form the guard. Now I head to the 2x72 grinder to smooth out the sharp edges left from using the angle grinder. All of this work is very rough at this point, as I am simply producing a piece of steel that will accommodate the final shape that I have planned for the guard and reduce waste metal. Having completed the roughing for the guard, I'm now applying layout fluid to the steel so I can outline the profile of the guard shape. I am gluing a paper pattern for the guard I am planning to create onto the piece of steel. I then scratch around the pattern through the layout compound to assure I can continue to see my desired shape even after the paper falls away. Now I return to the grinder to create the profile for my guard. I use a combination of a flat platen and some small wheel attachments to create this profile. At this point, the guard will have the desired profile shape but still be uniformly 1/2 inch thick across the entire length of the guard. Prior to doing any further shaping of the guard, I need to get a good fit for the guard onto the tang of the blade. This is a painstaking process of creating a slot so the guard will fit well onto the tang by drilling and filing and filing. I did not include these steps in the video. Now that I am satisfied with the fit of the guard onto the tang, I apply layout fluid to the entire guard once again so that I can mark a number of reference lines onto the guard to be used for further refining of the final shape. Now I return to the grinder to refine the final shape of the guard. Once again, I use a combination of a large rubber contact wheel and some small wheel attachments to achieve this step. In these pictures of the finished guard, note the 1/8 inch holes set into the top of the guard. These were made to accommodate steel lineup pins which will connect the guard to the spacer, which I will show being made in the next scenes of the video. To create the spacer, I start with a 3/4 inch piece of mild steel bar stock. The plan for the spacer is to create a piece where all of the edges have a concave design. The bottom of the spacer will be about a 1/2 inch thick to meet up nicely with the guard, and then flare out to about 3/4 of an inch where it will meet the rest of the handle. This is done with a small wheel attachment on the grinder. Once the concave edges are established with the proper thicknesses, I rounded off all of the sharp edges for the finished spacer. With the guard and the spacer finished, I move on to creating the pommel. I begin by cutting off a chunk of 1 inch diameter mild steel rod. Now I need to find the exact center of this piece of steel rod in order to drill and tap it properly. I drill a hole into a scrap 2x4 using a 1 inch Forstner bit. Now I set my 1 inch bar stock into the hole and change the drill bit to a number 29 bit that I need for tapping. I must do this without moving the drill press vise position in the slightest. A vise grip is used to hold the piece of 1 inch steel bar stock from spinning. I drill a pilot hole into the exact center of the piece of steel rod. I then position the tap into my drill press to assure everything stays centered, and then turn the tap by hand to create the thread inside of the pommel. I use a small wheel attachment to grind the base of the pommel into a concave shape. Then I grind in the four-pointed top of the pommel and the octagonal facets between the top of the pommel and the concave portion of the bottom of the pommel. Here is how the finished pommel looks. Moving on to the handle, I have chosen to use a piece of dried Central American Catalux wood. I begin by drilling out a slot for the tang in the rough wood block. I am now covering the tang and the steel handle pieces with Vaseline so I can bed the wood handle in epoxy. The Vaseline will ensure the epoxy only sticks to the inside of the wood block and forms a near perfect fit for the handle onto the tang. Once the epoxy sets up, I take apart the handle assembly and clean all of the pieces. I can now drill alignment holes for the handle so that the guard and the handle return to the same exact position each time the dagger is assembled. I am now ready to profile the shape of the handle. This is done using both a flat platen to profile the rough shape and a large rubber wheel to round off the handle edges. The finished handle has been sanded to 600 grit. I now need to make the steel guard, spacer, and pommel match the finish of the blade. I'm placing them in ferric chloride to create a darkened etch. Once they are removed, I neutralize the acid with a mixture of baking soda and water. After the etching is complete, the steel pieces are then cold blued and lightly sanded with 2000 grit sandpaper to create their finished form that will match the blade. With all the pieces of the hilt furniture completed, the Reaver dagger is now ready for final assembly. First, I slide the guard over the tang and seat it into position. Next, I insert two hardened steel lineup pins, which will connect the spacer to the guard. I then insert two more lineup pins into the top of the spacer. These will connect to the finished wood handle. Note how snug the wood handle fit to the guard is after bedding it in epoxy. Finally, I screw the pommel onto the previously threaded tang to secure all of the pieces of the handle furniture. Here's a look at the finished product. If you enjoyed this video of completing the Reaver dagger, please click like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much for watching.